2024 had some bopping games to come out, but you know what? I feel a little sad, because games from years prior are kinda left to the wayside so we can discuss the new and shiny ones. So we're gonna rectify that problem. Welcome to the Retro-ish Game of the Year 2024, where my friends and I will be talking about our favourite game we played in 2024 that came out in 2023 or before. Yes, we're being loosey-goosey with the term retro, but who cares? We are here to talk about games. And I'll kick off this congregation with Tearaway Unfolded. This game is a truly whimsical adventure if I ever did play one. A world of paper, and you play as this letter to deliver a message that is for you. But you have a bunch of these scraps that get in your way as you do so. It's honestly super simple story-wise, but it has some really strong moments that I found resonated with me on a deep level and made me feel very, very sad. Like, I'm surprised how sad this game was able to make me feel at a certain point. It's quite effective at hitting me in the feels. Really knows how to create an atmosphere that just sucks you in and brings forth emotional responses. But its plot is just a pure joy to go through, with its fun narrators and quirky world. Speaking of its world, it's really appealing on the eyes seeing this papercraft playground you get to explore. It's seriously cool traversing such an environment, and I'd argue it's probably one of the best games out there that really nails a world made out of paper aesthetic. The platforming in it is beyond solid, and there is a lot of interesting controls that are based around the controller, like lighting up areas, sucking and tossing objects, or swiping on the gamepad to create gusts of wind that shake the world. One of my favourite aspects is creating wind to fly a paper airplane, but I do have a soft spot for anything that lets me fly about. So, you know, this game really just has a lot of things I like. It really creates an extra level of immersion to help you feel like you are somewhat in control of this world, which is really fucking neat. Also, I just love the fact you can roll up your little envelope man into a ball and have him roll around. There's just something about it that makes me feel good. There's also a brilliant element to this game where you can find objects without colour and take pictures of them, which then allows you to download the instructions on how to make these little paper objects and creatures. I think this is such a fascinating idea that helps spur creativity within one if this world resonates with them. And the fact that they tie this also into the narrative is pretty cute. Also, its soundtrack is sensational, with feel-good tunes and even more somber melodies that just really bring to life the areas you plod through. Listen, I'm pretty sure they're using a kazoo in the music, and if I know anything about kazoos, it's that they make things infinitely better. This game is just charming down to its lines of code. A feeling of tranquility and wonder just settled upon me as I played it, and I almost felt like a child again as I made my way through its whimsical and wondrous lands. And that's the reason Tearaway is probably the best game I played last year, and my pick for this retro-ish 2024 Game of the Year list. Now on to my buddies to share their picks.
Hi everyone, this is Myubae and welcome to FR&MES channel. Thank you Pat for having me in your latest collaboration. So Pat asked me to talk about my favorite retro game. Initially I was going to do Pokemon Detective Pikachu Returns, but then there's another Pokemon game I liked so much better, and it was Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DX for the Nintendo Switch. Now, DX is the remake of the original games of the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS. I remember playing the older versions where I beat the main story to the point it made me cry. The ending made me sad, okay? I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was. Now, fast forward to the present, I picked it up again as an adult and it was nostalgic. It's a different experience when I played it, well, compared to when I was a kid. But the game starts out with a personality quiz, and when you finish the quiz, you get a certain Pokemon. In DX, you get to choose a different Pokemon if you don't like the Pokemon you got initially. So yeah, you can pick your partner too. You get to choose whether your Pokemon and your partner are a boy or girl. And I don't remember if that's the same thing for the original games, but yeah. When you first meet your partner in the world of Pokemon, you are a human but in Pokemon form. You and your partner try to figure out how you became a Pokemon, and at the same time form a rescue team by saving the other Pokemon who are in trouble or who really need your help. So yeah, you meet so many Pokemon in your journey. So for the gameplay, I enjoyed it. What I did not enjoy is when the difficulty gets really tough in some dungeons. Like, it gets really frustrating sometimes. But regardless of that though, I still enjoyed it for what it is. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DX is my favorite retro game because I like the story and the gameplay didn't make me feel bored. But yeah, the biggest reason though is the nostalgia factor. But yeah, thank you again, Pat, for having me, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!
Hello once again, I'm Dylan, or Pyxyll, whichever one you prefer. And another big thanks to Pat for giving me the opportunity to have another chat about video games. So, I've become a bit of a game hoarder on Steam. In the years that I've had my account, I've amassed over 600 games. But in that collection, there has been one that stood out to me. The Nonary games. So to begin talking about this, we have to do a short history lesson first. The Nonary games is actually 2 games. 999 and Virtue's Last Reward, originally released for the Nintendo DS and 3DS respectively. The Nonary games is the title given to the bundle of games when it released on Steam. The Nonary games is a visual novel murder mystery meets escape room puzzle game. These 2 elements from a gameplay perspective are split up. Visual novel section where your choices influence the story, and the escape room where you have to try and solve puzzles in order to progress. On paper, this sounds like a little bit of a pacing nightmare, but in practice, the balance is perfection. The 2 elements of gameplay work hand in hand to give you an amazing experience. The choices have so much weight, and the puzzles are extremely rewarding. Okay, so why am I putting 2 games in here? Well, that's because, personally, I think neither one is as good without the other. So if these games sound like your cup of tea, play both. And the best way to play these games, despite them being DS games, is the PC ports. While there are some quirks left over from the target console, there are some quality of life improvements that are only available on the PC version of the game. You'll also notice that in my little speech here, I am being a little bit vague and not revealing too much about the game. That's because if you wanted to play these games, everything matters in some capacity. Down to the character names. It all has some significance to the world building, and I don't want to rob you of that. So if you have any interest in the puzzle genre, or for that matter the visual novel genre, these are a must play. And this is why it's my retro game of the year.
What's going on, everyone? It's the Mad Belmont here. Thank you so much, friends, for having me on for this video. I greatly appreciate it, man. So, I played a lot of retro video games this year. A lot of which were replays, games that I played before that I just wanted to go through again. But there were a lot of retro games that I had never played before that I went through this past year in 2024. And when I was narrowing it down to what was my retro game of the year, it was a really, really hard choice because I didn't want to put a replay in here. So naturally, I had to sit there and decide, but I eventually landed on one. And that one game is right here, Mega Man 4 from Capcom. Let's talk about it. The reason why Mega Man 4 is my 2024 retro game of the year is because I played through a total of 5 Mega Man games and a lot of other Capcom games over the course of this year, but out of all the Capcom games that I played, it was this one, man. It was this one. It wasn't a replay either. I could have went in a different direction if I actually counted my replays into this, but for me, it has to be Mega Man 4. The absolute attention to detail in this game. I love the power weapons that you get from all the different bosses in the game. I love the level designs. The music was phenomenal. I like the story with Dr. Kozak and, you know, the whole bait and switch that they eventually do near the end of the game. I love all the different robot masters. I feel like this game has a lot of the best robot master designs for me personally. I still have a while to go with this franchise, but for right now, I definitely like the robot designs here in Mega Man 4. I also love the different variety that you get in the gameplay. You'll sit there and you'll have a lot of the game being that traditional side-scrolling platforming, but then you'll have sections in these different levels where, for instance, you are on a ski in one of the water levels and you're sitting there having to dodge different things and shoot things, and it's just so much fun. I absolutely love this game. If you have not played Mega Man 4 and you're looking for a good platformer to get into, a good action platformer to get into, I highly recommend Mega Man 4. You're not going to be disappointed. Really, as far as Mega Man goes, you're really not going to be disappointed at all, because I have had a fun time with every single game I played so far in this franchise. But as far as what I think is the best, it's easily Mega Man 4 for all of the reasons that I've mentioned so far. So that is why Mega Man 4 is my 2024 Retro Game of the Year. Thank you once again, the Frames, for having me on for this. I greatly appreciate it, my guy. And without further ado, have fun on the hunt, and I will see you in the next one, my fellow Belmonts.
My favorite retro game that I've been playing in 2024 is a tough one. I recently started playing Final Fantasy Tactics, and I've been enjoying that. And I also had a brief phase earlier this year where I was replaying a bunch of Sega racing games. But I think my favorite retro game I've played all year has got to go to Mega Man Legends. It's a game I've put off for the longest time, and I regret doing that because it delivered big time for me. To be honest with you, I'm not really into Mega Man games. As much as I want to love them, I just cannot get into action platformers. I've tried time and time again, but they just don't click for me. You see, Mega Man Legends is a bit different from your normal Mega Man games though. Not only is it one of the first Mega Man games to be made in 3D, but it also has a heavier emphasis on both adventure and exploration. And that's where the game thrives. It's not the biggest, craziest game ever, but because of that, Capcom was able to make Cadillacs Island into a cozy but interesting setting. You get to know all of its inhabitants really well, including the Bond pirates who make for fun antagonists. And not to mention, this game is freaking gorgeous as well. It has a vibrant, low-poly aesthetic that's really pleasing to look at. The entire game just feels very inviting, I guess you could say. The one area I think this game falters in is combat. You can't strafe left and right while you're targeting enemies, and that really sucks, but it doesn't make this game unplayable. And I'm even willing to give the developers some grace here because 3D was still new to home consoles at the time. Regardless of that though, this is a great game worth trying out for yourself. This game is simple, fun, and it's given me one of my favorite gaming memories. I'm already looking back on it fondly, and it hasn't even been that long since I've beaten it. Play this game. I cannot recommend Mega Man Legends enough.
What's going on, guys? UpperNimbus here. So when Pat from Frames had asked me what retro-ish game have I been playing in 2024, well, I had to go with Perfect Dark from the Nintendo 64. So when it comes to playing a retro-ish kind of game in 2024, well, to be honest with you, the only retro game I've really been playing is Perfect Dark from the Nintendo 64. And I'll tell you what, I've been having a blast playing this game all over again. Perfect Dark is seriously one of the most difficult games on the Nintendo 64. I swear Rareware made some really challenging games back in the day. Like, even the easiest mode in the game, which I think is called Agent Mode, can be pretty difficult difficult later on in the game. I think what really holds me up and sets me back is some of the missions. I feel like that some of the missions in this game are super cryptic, and it's such a puzzle in itself to even figure out what you're meant to do. Sure, you get some hints in the description if you open up the menu and all that, but it doesn't really tell you where to go or what to interact with directly. It's really cryptic, really hard to figure out, and the higher the difficulty you go, not only do the enemies get stronger and harder, but also the puzzles get stronger and harder. But that's why I love this game so much. There is so much replay value. It's so addictive. It makes you want to come back again and again, retry the levels over and over until you finally get it and you get better and you move on further into the game. I really do think that Perfect Dark is actually better than GoldenEye. Yes, I know people aren't going to be happy about that, but like the thing is, GoldenEye is a classic, right? Sure, I can agree to that, but Perfect Dark technically is the better game. Like, it runs smoother, it's more pretty and vibrant, it's more flashy, and it's also just an original game and an original story. I love the surreal themes in this game. You know what I mean? Like, if you play this, you'll know where this game goes, and it's crazy. Like, for 1 minute, you're in the city streets, next minute, you're not. You're literally somewhere else. You'll find out once you play this game. But honestly, Perfect Dark is such a classic, and it's something that I want to keep playing, and I definitely will, even leading into 2025. And that's right, I've been playing this on the original Nintendo 64, the legitimate OG way to play. Pat from Frames, thank you so much for inviting me to this amazing collaboration of yours. I had an awesome time talking about Perfect Dark from the Nintendo 64. And as always with these collaborations, I look forward to everybody else's choice within this video. So until the next time, everybody, UpperNimbus is signing off.
Hi, Shane aka SteadySphere here, and Pat has kindly invited me once again to share my retro game of the year. The Dreamcast is a beauty of a console, as while it had a short life, it offered some mighty games which hold up even years later. As I continue to explore the library for my channel and review various titles for the platform, one of the best I played in 2024 was Rayman 2: The Great Escape. While arriving for several platforms between the late 90s and 2010s, Michel Ancel himself singled out the DC port as the best, and it's easy to see why. It runs beautifully, boasts immense details, and doesn't cut content like some subsequent versions. But most importantly, the gameplay remains an absolute treat on this version. Platforming flows like water, the controls are airtight, and every stage throws new surprises your way. Whether it's jet sailing on a swamp creature or riding a rocket bullet to blow up blockades, it's all great fun. And it's one of those sequels which smartly improves upon the prior game, softening the difficulty curve and adjusting the live system while offering fun from hidden items and a gradually increasing challenge. It's not a flawless game, mind you, as some frustrating segments can dampen the experience, but these are quite rare. This, coupled with high quality music, a concise yet fulfilling length, and challenging bonus stages all make for an excellent 3D platformer, and my pick for Retro Game of the Year 2024. Once again, thank you so much to Pat for inviting me back to share my Retro Game of the Year. I can't wait to see what all your other guests have picked. Be well and stay safe, everyone.
Hello everyone, this is Ombres, and thanks again for Pat for the invitation. Glad to be part of the Frame group. So, you want me to talk about my retro game that I did finish this year. It was hard to pick because I did finish around 80 retro game this year. Thanks of my gaming memories for that. But I did pick my first love, Phantasy Star. This is the game that made me fall in love with RPG and dungeon crawler, since it's a mix of the two. I know this game could be hard to play today, but there's an H version on the Switch that had a lot of quality of life, like the map that get created as you explore and you see it in the corner. Unlike when I did it back then, I did write out my own map like that. Yeah, I still have them. I keep everything. What I like about this game is how great looking it is if you compare it to all the game that came from back then. Like in the fight, you have a background, the enemies are moving when they attack. And it's not a too long RPG, you could finish it under 20 hours. Sure, there's a lot of grinding, then again the age version does help that a lot by reducing the encounter rate and you get a lot more XP and gold, so that's helped a lot. What I also find interesting is the main character is a female. Her name is Alice. And also you get a cat as a party member. It's a game set in science fiction world setting. And you can even travel between the 3 planets in a spaceship. Since you can compare it to a lot of games back then that were medieval, that make it unique. Yeah, I really love that game. This is really one of my favorite games that I'm glad that I finished it again this year. So thanks again a lot, Pat, for the invitation, and remember to have fun and to create some great gaming memories.
Thank you so much, Pat, for inviting me to this collab once again. When Pat asked me to be part of this collab, and I said heck yes, I realized seconds later, hang on, did I play any retro games this year? And the answer is yes. Yes, I did. I just simply forgot because there were 2 2024 games in particular that I played that had my full attention all year, which were Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Visions of Mana. Ah, so good. Anyway, the retro video games I played were Final Fantasy Adventure, which I briefly mentioned in last year's Retro Game of the Year collab, Final Fantasy V, Legend of Zelda Minish Cap, Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie's Double Trouble, Donkey Kong Land 1, Donkey Kong Land 2, and Donkey Kong Land 3. The Donkey Kong Land games were just released these past few weeks on Nintendo Switch Online, and I figured, hey, why not add them to this year's list before I do this collab? Out of all 7 retro games, I only finished 2. So I'm going to talk about the retro game that I had the most fun with, which was Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie's Double Trouble. Although it's not my favorite Donkey Kong Country game, it's Donkey Kong Country 2, it's still a really fun game and is quite challenging at times too. Also, I love the fact Dixie Kong is the main lead Kong in this game. She's my favorite Kong and I mainly used her in Donkey Kong Country 2 anyway. The new sidekick Kong this time around is one adorable and heavy baby named Kitty Kong, Dixie's younger cousin. As you would assume, I mainly use Dixie Kong, however, Kitty is quite handy from throwing Dixie up in places you can't jump to, and throwing him upwards can cause him to break through cracked surfaces because of his weight. Throwing him against the wall will make him roll, which gives Dixie the chance to jump on and ride him like a steel keg. Kitty can also bounce on water, which complements Dixie's helicopter twirl. Side note, for a petite monkey, Dixie has super strength. Just look at her carrying Kitty. Here he is, all smiles, having a blast, and Dixie looks like she's about to be squashed, but she is carrying. Kitty is also precious to look at when he's walking, crawling like an actual toddler. Well, duh, he's 3 years old. And when he's carrying a barrel, oh, so cute. Just look at this cutie in a onesie walking on his 2 legs. So adorable. I will say though, Kitty's tantrum pounding the ground with his fists when you no longer have Dixie and you get hit is half adorably funny, half obnoxiously loud. Even though Donkey Kong Country 2's soundtrack is my favorite and the best soundtrack within the Donkey Kong Country series in my opinion, that goes without saying. Donkey Kong Country 3's soundtrack is still awesome. The tracks Waterworld and Rock Face Rumble that have been playing through this video are examples of my favorite tracks, but one of my other favorites is Big Boss Blues. Big Boss Blues plays during the final boss and it's so good. There's a part where it sounds like GoldenEye 007 from Nintendo 64 and I love it. Give it a listen to this track. Nostalgic. Once I finished it for the second time, I was like, despite it being a bit more challenging than Donkey Kong Country 2, Donkey Kong Country 3 is actually more fun than I remembered. I must admit though, I did struggle and found it very challenging when I was playing this over 20 years ago. Overall, I'm glad I finished Donkey Kong Country 3 again this year. I started 2024 finishing Final Fantasy Adventure, oh boy that game, and finishing the year with Donkey Kong Country 3, a game from one of my favourite series on the Super Nintendo, making this my retro game of the year. This game brought a smile to my face because now I am very hyped for Donkey Kong Country Returns HD on January 16th next year, as this would mean I will then own every Donkey Kong Country game, showing proof that I am a huge Donkey Kong Country fan. Thanks again Pat from Frames for inviting me to this collab. I'm Azza the Ace and I'll see you in the next collab. Peace out.
Acquire is a studio that I'm realizing that I enjoy a lot of their games. Way of the Samurai is silly but also super complex and mechanically rich. Tenchu is my favorite stealth series of all time. Oculus Strip is dumb fun and will get I can explain out of you if somebody walked in on you playing it. They make games that are games first, and Samurai Western exemplifies this mantra. It's a simple beat 'em up with only one button. There isn't any combo strings or delay inputs, just slice some dudes up as swiftly as possible. The real death comes from the reflect dodge button. By pressing R1 at the right time, you can block bullets or spin around them while moving to get a speed boost. Doing this at the right time can stagger enemies and lead to an instant kill attack. It's a simple and becomes second nature once you get the hang of it, making you truly feel like a samurai capable of winning a gunfight. The real fun comes from the systems outside of general gameplay because it's a very easy to learn game. There's a bunch of weapons that have unique movesets and properties that change how you tackle levels. I stuck with the dual swords because they felt the most fun to me. These weapons can be upgraded throughout gameplay, and there's also accessories in true acquire style that are just dumb as hell, like a masquerade mask that gives you plus 10 life or a monkey that you tie to your back that decreases all your stats. You can scale these accessories too and change their rotation and positioning to your liking. It's really cool. The game is very ahead of its time in a good way. Everyone always says, man, I wish, man, remember when games used to be games? And this is a prime example of this. There's a ton of unlockables and bonus missions. I replayed this game 3 times in a row just to maximize my weapons, accessories, and skill points, but also because it's really fun and concise. Especially with the power accumulated, you can breeze through the early levels and while trying to route out a new high score. The multipliers and extra parameters you add for bonus points aren't too difficult but work just enough to make you change your playstyle and think on the fly. This is one of those games, unfortunately, that's just way overpriced just off of scarcity, though I really want everyone to at least try this game. It's truly one of a kind, and it brings me back to that arcade design that games used to have before, you know, whatever insert reason why gaming is dying that we're saying now.
I actually came to my choice for Retro Game of the Year for 2024 in a unique way. I wound up teaching it. See, I was lucky enough to be able to teach a university course on the Grand Theft Auto series, and part of that course was actually playing the games. You can't examine them if you haven't played them, right? Now, it would be easy to pick something like San Andreas, or GTA 5, or even Red Dead Redemption, which I did throw in as part of the open world discourse. But none of those are my pick. If you know anything about me, you know that I have an affinity for games that aren't the popular choices. The quirky, the underrated, the underdiscussed. That's why my pick for Retro Game of the Year 2024 is Grand Theft Auto Advance for the Game Boy Advance. See, many people may have overlooked GTA Advance because of the, let's be nice and call them middling ports of the first 2 games to the Game Boy Color, courtesy of Tarantula Studios. Those ports were not great. They were hard to see, hard to control, and the music was pretty ear-splitting. Again, I know because we played them in class, and yikes. GTA Advance, on the other hand, was not a port from another, vastly more powerful platform. It was built from the ground up for the GBA, not by Rockstar, but by the wizards at Digital Eclipse. There are a few reasons why I had to go with this game, so let me talk at you a bit. Yeah. First, in designing this game specifically for a handheld system, Digital Eclipse sidestepped some of the issues Tarantula encountered. Tarantula was doing a direct port of the original PC version of GTA, which meant that there were certain things that they had to adhere to, like tank controls, the storyline, the camera perspective, and the overall layout of the game. This got awkward, because for one, PC GTA was designed for a desktop monitor, not a screen the size of an international postage stamp. This means that things got shrunk down to a jumble of pixels. Here, while Digital Eclipse did stick with the top-down perspective, despite developing and releasing the game at the height of GTA 3 and Vice City's popularity, and right before the atom bomb that would be San Andreas went off, not only did they make the right choice for the hardware, but they also didn't need to stick with what came before. Instead, the camera perspective, which does zoom in and out, still manages to keep everything looking good on the tiny GBA screen. On top of that, all of the assets, and even the engine, were custom made for this game. This comes from no less a source than Mike Micah himself. The controls are great, the action is solid without any one mission dragging out for too long, in other words, perfect for portable play, and best of all, it features an original story. Now, before you roll your eyes at the last one, Rockstar totally signed off on the story and encouraged Digital Eclipse to run with their ideas. This game is 100% canon in the GTA timeline. In fact, Rockstar insisted on an original story, something else Mike mentioned when talking about the game. So, considering the delays for GTA 6, if you've played the major entries to death, you owe it to yourself, and maybe the good folks over at Digital Eclipse, to give GTA Advance a go. Considering Rockstar themselves would reuse many of the concepts and ideas in GTA Advance in Chinatown Wars, that should speak to the quality of this underappreciated gem in the GTA series, and why it's my pick for Retro Game of the Year 2024.
Thanks for having me on yet again, Pat. When you asked me what game I was going to pick, it really wasn't all that hard for me to decide. If anyone here knows my taste in games, then you'd know I'm an SNK and Nihon Falcom guy. Just like CM Punk makes no secret about him being a Paul Heyman guy. Yeah, I make a lot of wrestling references and dad jokes as well. So what retro game did I end up picking? I went with Gauro, Mark of the Wolves, which is the 6th mainline installment in SNK's long-running Fatal Fury franchise. Gauro also just happens to be the most beloved Fatal Fury entry of all time. It's so beloved, in fact, it was still talked about by FGC members 20 plus years after its release. My pick is also rather fitting, given at the time of recording, Fatal Fury just got its newest entry with City of the Wolves after a 26-year wait. That's a long fucking time to wait for a new entry for a game, but I have to say, that game was well worth the wait, and I believe in 20 years' time, members of the fighting game community will look back on City of the Wolves just as fondly. But what was it about Mark of the Wolves that made it so loved to both hardcore FGC fanboys and casuals alike? It's the fact the game is so easy to pick up and play that even newcomers to fighting games can vaguely understand what they're supposed to do, thanks to the game having simpler controls that are generally unified amongst the diverse cast of characters. Gauro features a total of 14 playable characters, with Terry Bogard being the only returning one. Originally, Gauro was intended to close the chapter on the previous cast of characters and pass the torch on to the next generation. You have to remember, the first Fatal Fury launched in 1991, and these games were much more story-focused than their other fighting game contemporaries. So after a handful of mainline games and a couple of spin-offs, characters like Terry and his brother Andy, plus others like Mai Shiranui, were no longer seen as fresh and exciting, both to SNK and the general gaming public. So you could think of Mark of the Wolves as being both a continuation, but also a soft reboot. The game also did so well, there were plans to make a sequel not long after the fact. However, it never came to fruition, because SNK would go through some severe financial difficulties, along with losing a good majority of its talent in the process. But enough waffling on about the history and the could-have-beens. What else makes the game so legendary? It's because of how dense the mechanics of the game happen to be. You have your typical special and super moves you'll find in any other fighting game, and the pixel art used looks as good in 2025 as it did in 1999. To think, I was only 9 at the time.
I'm old, Gandalf.
But it also features a whole host of other things that add to the depth of the gameplay. There's the Just Defend mechanic, which gives a small advantage to defending players. It rewards them with a small amount of health recovery instead of taking chip damage, plus the amount of time a player remains in block stun is shortened, meaning they can go on the offensive again far sooner, given Gauro rewards players for playing aggressively. This not just helps balance the game out, but it also rewards players who know life the game enough to know the exact frame data for every single attack animation. But it doesn't stop there. There's another mechanic that is worth discussing. It's called the top system. Top standing for tactical offensive position. The player can position their top meter at various positions on their health bar. They can have it for when they're at the highest portion of their life bar, the middle, or the end. In this mode, characters will recover health very slowly, their attack power is boosted, and it gives them access to a special move by pressing the C and D buttons at the same time, which is a nice get off of me move. So couple that with the easy pick up and play nature of the game, and Gauro morphs into a game anyone can enjoy, plus the music is pretty damn awesome. In fact, you've been hearing one of the songs from it while I've been nattering away. Music is actually one of SNK's strengths on top of interesting characters and highly stylized graphics. But I feel I've rambled on enough. It's time for me to pass it over to someone else and let them take the floor. So until next time, keep blazing that trail.
And that be our Retro-ish games of 2024. It's quite something seeing what people will pick from the wide range of games that are out there to play, and is a fun look back at all the games that have existed in general. What was your Retro-ish game of 2024? Let us know down in the comments below, as it's always great to see what ye will pick and might add some games to my already way too big backlog. Special thanks to my friends for helping out in this video. It always makes these lists where we share our fondness for gaming so much fun to work on, and just generally really fun videos to watch, I find. I highly implore you check some of these guys out, as they're super talented and just really lovely individuals who make good shit. Well, until next time friends, take her handy.